the exceptions that we write is in the batch. We say begin try and end try, right? And then whatever exceptions inside this, we write statements, right? And there will be multiple statements that we'll be writing inside this. And then whatever exceptions raised, that is whatever errors raised during this part, they will be handled in the catch block. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do today is I am going to stop at this point for exceptions. I wanted to give you an idea about how error is raised and how it is handled. Fine. Now we are going to start with programming of SQL Server, right? So the programmability part now we will start. So you see, if you are in Oracle, do you find any disturbance in the conversation?
Not from your side. Do you feel some disturbance from my side?
I think so. Something
Some
that I'm.
noise, banging
Uh-huh.
noise. So
Uh-huh.
my iPad, I dropped my iPad. So I'm sorry
No, I
about
mean,
this.
no, not about that. It's something else. It is
Is
probably.
it fan?
I don't know. That's okay. Um, so now the main topic that we are, this demarcation line, writing programs. Okay. So the next major topic for the day will be this programmability. So we are, it's not, exception is not yet finished, okay? We are going to revisit it after we get acquainted with the basic concepts of programs. So let's go to fundamentals of, I'm sure it is not needed to talk much about the need of programming because you have already done some kind of programming in some languages, right? So that shouldn't be an issue, right? See,
Yeah,
basically,
so need of programming. If you want to tell, say, a couple of lines, why would SQL
definitely,
programming be needed?
exactly, yes. So programming is not new to you, but database programming is different than any other programming. That is what I'm going to talk about. See, basically, every database has its own programming status or programming product. That's what I mean to say. So, the basic question is, so far we have been like we started on 25th of May and we are happy writing queries, isn't it? We write queries of different types. We request those queries to the database server. The server processes them. It gives it back to me. So everything is going on very well. So when I'm able to fetch data or if I'm able to manipulate data, writing queries, why programming? Why do we have to go one step further and write programs? That is what my question is all about, right? See, uh, it's not like whatever we have studied so far, keep it aside and start with altogether a new topic. Okay, it is not going to be like that. So whatever we have studied so far is going to be, attached with programs. So it is an extension of SQL. That's what we are going to. That's what I mean to say. Okay, and every database has its programming module. So actually, frankly speaking, uh, Oracle's programming module is much better than SQL Server's programming module. Okay, like for example, in Oracle, we have two parts, SQL and PLSQL. That is programming with SQL. So PLSQL is Oracle product. So there you write programs using PLSQL block structures which involves queries as well as programming logic. Okay. Here in SQL Server, we have something called as Transact SQL, that is called as TSQL. Okay, so here also we will be writing programs using SQL and capabilities to create programs in SQL Server using TSQL, right? So every database has its programming capability. Now again to the question that we have raised, that if we are already good at writing queries, then why do we have to write programs? That is the important thing. Now about SQL, like we have said so far, the SQL, the queries, they are basically session specific, isn't it? For example, this is one session that we have created, right? And I've been working in this session, so I write different queries here. So what is the life of each query? I mean, if I write a very lengthy select statement here, what is the scope or life of that query?
Very lengthy select statement.
Any query.
Life. A query would come to life only when executed and
No, uh, no, not like that. I mean to say that the validity of the query will be only for that session, isn't it? That means if I close this session, sorry, if I close this session from here, or if the system crashes, or if the SQL Server is closed, then that query is no longer available to me. Getting my point? So the scope of that query is only for that session. It is not available after the session is closed, right? So what I mean to tell you is these queries that we have been writing so far, they are not permanent, right? So if that particular functionality, if I require every now and then I have to write the same part or the same code all over again. So basically I am repeating the same set of queries again and again. And every time I write a query, every time it goes to the server, it comes with the result. So there is lot of IO involved in it. So the server there will be a traffic jam every time. And also the query will be compiled. Every time it getting executed, every time it gets compiled. So there has to be a program. There has to be some kind of program which permanently stores the queries and programming logic. So this entire thing or this entire activity is done only once. And all the queries and the related programming logic will be compiled and it will be present in my database permanently. So every time I will not write it. Every time what I'll do, I'll just compile it once and invoke it multiple times. So that is an added advantage that I get. And I can call it not only from backend, that is the one that we are learning right now, but I can also call it from a front-end application. Or I can also integrate it with some other applications. Like I can call it through SSIS or RS, that kind. Or if I can integrate it with some other application, I can do it. Getting my point? So the scope of that program is from where you call it. Sorry. Now, this is one part that about queries, writing queries, permanently storing them in a program. Another part is there is a limitation to the queries that I have been writing so far, in the sense that I write queries and I get results, right? But can I store the values of the queries temporarily in some variables? No, isn't it? So, like for example, I say select ename, dname. You know this, right? What I'm doing? I'm writing a join from emp. Let's say um, left outer join, which table? dpt. Okay, and my joining condition is what? emp dot dpt now equal to dpt dot dpt. This is my query, right? And then I'm executing this query and I get result, fine. But what about these values? The values that I'm getting through these columns, can I temporarily store somewhere? If I write another query after this for ename and dname, these values will no longer be available to me, right? So I cannot store these values temporarily in a variable, which is very much possible if I'm writing a program. So what I can do is basically I can create permanent objects, permanent objects of database, and these objects are named objects. That means I'll be writing programs with some names to them, right? So, and I can create variables which accepts parameters. Okay, so I can interact with the user. I can ask user to provide a value which can come through a variable, or I can temporarily store values in a variable. Then I can use something called as conditional logic. I can use conditional logic. So in short, what I'm talking about, see, SQL does not have, it's SQL is not a procedural language. Okay, I cannot have if then else kind of conditions. At the max, what I can have case, when then. Okay, but I can have proper if then else type of conditional checking logic. Based on a condition, take some action. If that type of functionality I want, I can write programs in which there is an if condition. Okay, so something more I can write here. I can type control structures. What are control structures? Do you know?
Control statement. So if else, switch case, they're all they pass the control throughout the
Looping
code.
techniques. Looping
Looping,
techniques.
yes.
Okay, so if I want to process a set of statements repetitively, iteratively, then I use control structures. Okay, and actually, unfortunately, or for I don't know what, but SQL Server has only one loop called as while loop. You know how it works?
While, do while?
No, while. There's a difference between do while and while.
Mm, I'm not a very program savvy person, but I want to be. So I've heard of these, but I do not know the exact difference between the two, while and do while.
See, do while, I'll just tell you, do, then statement 1, statement 2, like that. So there can be 25 lines of code in between. And then there is something called as while condition. Okay, like that. So what it does is it executes these set of statements even if the condition is wrong once. Okay, so what it does is it first executes all set of statements and then checks the condition. So if the condition is this condition, suppose if the condition is wrong, still this set of statements will get executed at least once. Getting my point? So do this entire thing even if the condition is wrong. So where is like where it is most useful? It's like you should at least give one chance to the user to provide password, even if it is wrong. Getting my point? So that is what do while is all about. It gives you or it executes a set of statements even if the condition is wrong. As opposed to this, like in SQL Server, we have while condition. While and then the condition is given. Fine. Now, what does it do is it will enter inside the loop only and only if the condition is true. Okay, so if the condition is true, then it will come inside the loop and it will execute those set of statements. If the condition is false, it will not enter inside the loop. Okay, and till what time it will keep on executing the loop, statements? Till the condition is true, it will keep on executing all these statements. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So, for example, I am writing one procedure and the name of the procedure is add records. Fine. So, what is this procedure is doing? This procedure is having one insert into EMP table. Okay. So, this procedure add records is having insert into EMP table. Some insert statement. Now, I have to use a while loop. How many times you want to insert while let's say button equal to yes. Keep on inserting. Means what? See, on your front end, there will be a button called as add records. So the data entry operator will click on the button and do you want to add records? Click on yes. The moment you click on yes, the control goes inside and it starts inserting record. For next record, again it will ask, do you want to insert record? Yes. So the user will keep on clicking on yes. So till he is clicking on yes, the loop is iterating. The moment he clicks on no, the condition becomes false and it comes out of the loop. Getting my point now? So how the while loop executes? It keeps on executing the statements inside it till the condition is true. The moment the condition becomes false, then the loop terminates. Okay. There is one more loop called as for loop. It's just for your reference. What is the difference between while loop and for loop? For loop has fixed boundaries. Like for example, I say for I in 1 to 10. That means I know that this loop is going to iterate 10 times from 1 till 10. But for a while there is no such boundary. So which loop I should choose when? That is a question, isn't it? So if you know fixed boundaries, go for loop. But if you do not know how many times the loop is going to get executed, it all depends upon runtime user's requirement. Then you should go for while loop. Okay. And so we'll be writing programs, we'll be writing exceptions and statements, loops, variables, uh, control structures, if then else, conditional logic, etc. So queries along with this programming logic will make a program and that program will be stored in the database. Is that fine? There is one command. It's a statement called as print. Okay, and when you say print and you give something, it will print. So there is a difference between print and select. For example, I'm going to say select ABC. Okay. Let's remove this. If I execute this much, then what is going to happen? It prints it in the results set, right? Where I get all the result. But if I say print ABC, it's going to be different. Where does it come? It comes in the message window. Okay, the messages like zero rows selected, or whenever you get error. So all the messages are shown in the message window. So the print command, it shows whatever statements in the message window, and select command is shows the records or results in the result window. Okay. Now there are two types of blocks here. Blocks in the sense everything we write in the term of batches. Okay, so there are two types batches, that is anonymous, don't bother about the spelling, and named. Okay, anonymous and named means what? That sometimes we only write batches and execute them, but sometimes we write named batches. Do you see there is something called as programmability here? Okay. Now in programmability, as you can see, we have something called as stored procedures, functions, triggers, etc. So let us see what do we have here. Stored procedures. These are system procedures. Okay, that have been created. It is not my procedure created. It's a system dot something something. Like this, we can create our own procedures. Okay, so we will be creating them shortly. So these are named programs. Okay, they are called as batches. So together we execute a batch. It may not be with name. It may be with name or it may be without name. Okay, so we are going to write batches of code. Now about the printing statement, there is you have to give, to have apostrophe, you have to give one more single quote to print it. See, king's salary. So I want to have that single quote here, apostrophe s. So for that you have to have one more single quote included for it. Otherwise, if you write king's salary as it is going to give problems for it. Please remember this. It's about the messages. Okay. If I write only king's salary like this, and if I execute it, it is going to give you syntax error. Fine, because it will try to look for the end of this colon. So you terminate it before it and give one more single quote. Or else there is a command called a set quoted under identifier of. This quoted identifier of will then not create any problems. The quotes, if you want to give a single quote, the entire statement you have to include in double quotation marks. Fine. Now, how to declare variables? Okay, there are two types of variables in SQL Server. That is, I'll write it here only. Types of variables. Types of variables. There is one variable which starts with single at the rate, and there is another variable which starts with double at the rate. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? The variable which is single at the rate is a local variable, and the variable which is with double at the rate is a global variable. So, can you tell me what is the difference between local variable and global variable?
So the value of global variable, if they are to be used throughout the program, they will be declared global and will be used globally, and local will be used in only certain part of the program.
Not throughout the program, I mean to say throughout the session.
Okay.
Getting my point? For example, sorry. For example, if I'm declaring a variable locally, that means sorry, that means the scope of this particular variable is only to that particular program. So if I am declaring a variable x, the variable value of variable x or scope of variable x is only to the program where it is declared. But if I am declaring a variable with double at the rate, that is a global variable, the scope of that variable is throughout this entire session. Fine. So it is available across multiple programs for that session. The value may be different in another session, but for that session, this is available to multiple programs. Okay, so the which variable is having a wider scope? Obviously, the global variable has a wider scope within multiple programs, and this has a limited scope only for that particular program. Okay. So how to declare variables in SQL Server? That we will first talk about. There is a keyword that you have to use. The keyword is called as declare. Okay. Declare at the rate variable name and the data type. That is the syntax of declaring a variable. And how to initialize it? The way you can initialize it is set. Set is a keyword. Set variable name equal to and the value of that variable. See, what we have done is we have said declare x as integer. Okay, so how do you declare it? Declare is a keyword at the rate x integer. Then we are initializing it on the next line. Set at the rate x is equal to 98. So we have initialized it to value 98 and we are printing it. And we may want to print it with some message. So let me just execute these lines first and then we will say variable x is. Can you tell me what is this part?
Was cast x as varchar. As varchar. Are you changing some values into variable character? Data type. Are you
Okay,
changing some
what
data
is
type?
this? What is this? Can you tell me?
Don't know.
We have studied it
Is it
when we started
typecast?
with. We studied different operators in SQL. Do you remember?
Operators.
Concatenation.
Okay, yes.
It's a concatenation operator. And we are using cast because this is a character type. So we are converting X to its varchar type. So for that we are using cast. Cast is a typecasting function. We have done this, isn't it? Your salary
Yes.
is, and then we casted it, and then we attach salary to that. So we are using a concatenation operator here. Okay,
Right.
fine. So if I execute, what is this? This is called as entire batch. This is called as a batch. So this is a terminology specific to SQL Server, right? So I am now, this batch is without name. This is anonymous batch. Okay, that means is it a stored procedure? Tell me.
Have you taught stored procedure?
No.
Okay.
No,
I
what
do
I
not.
mean to say,
No, I was just
I
thinking.
mean,
Okay.
does it have any name?
Name of what?
This is my program, suppose. Okay, so is this program having any name? Have I given any name to this program?
No, I
No,
don't
this
think
is
so.
not a stored procedure. When it will become a stored procedure? When I will give a name to this entire batch, and this will become a part of my database. Then it will become a stored procedure. So it is not a named object. Okay. So this entire batch is like one query. So I will have to every time write it and execute it. Getting my point? This is anonymous without any name. So I'm going to execute it. So what is it showing me? It is printing the value X, that is 98, and then it is next line printing value of X is 98. Is it clear now? Okay. So we have executed this entire batch, and then we got these results. So what do you think? What is the current value of @X, variable X?
98.
Okay. So sorry. So if I execute this line right now, what will be the output? I'm executing only this line, print @X.
Can't say.
So what are you thinking? If I execute print @X right now, what will be the output?
Value of X variable is 98.
So will it print?
The value of X variable is 98. It's showing down. Yeah.
So if I execute this, if I select only this line and execute, that's what I told you, that this is a batch. It's like declaration is done, but it is not a stored procedure. Okay, so fine, I'll individually select this, and then I'll individually print this. Still it is not going to work. But if I select this as one entire batch, then it is going to work. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
So each statement right now is single batch, and that is why it is not working.
Okay.
Now this becomes this go. When I type go, this entire statement, it becomes one batch. Okay, fine. Now batch can be explicit session of piece of code, that is set of multiple lines. This is what I'm talking about, this batch. Or if nothing is selected, then the entire code in the session becomes the batch. Means what? If nothing is selected means what? Means right now, did I select? Earlier what I was doing, I was selecting this entire thing to form one batch, and then I was executing it, right? And I was getting this value. But if I do not select anything right now, and if I execute, still I'll get it. So what it does is, it actually, whatever is there inside this session, it makes one batch out of it and it executes all of them. So if you want to execute a part of the code, you select and make one batch out of it. Otherwise, you select nothing and execute. So all the statements will be formed as one batch. Okay. Now this was about single variable declaration. Now about multiple variable declaration. So if you want to declare multiple variables, you do not have to write those many declarative statements. Getting my point? So this is how you can write. I'll just, is it visible to you? I mean,
Yes.
okay. So in one line also you can declare like this. So you can say declare @x integer @y integer, and then individually you can initialize it. Or else you can individually declare x as integer, declare y as integer, and then initialize it. So either way, it is possible to declare. Fine. From 2008 version, we have some, new type of declarations can be done. Is it enables you to initialize variable inline as a part of variable declaration. For example, like this: declare @I as int and initialize to 50. Okay, so instead of individually doing it, you can work like this. See, declare variable name, data type, as is a keyword, data type, and there itself you will have to initialize it. So till earlier what you used to do, that we used to first declare and then we used to say set, right? So we used to write two different statements, one for declaration and another to initialize. Here we have combined both together. This is the feature starting from 2008 version of SQL Server, right? So how the declaration is done: declare variable as data type equal to initialization value, right? And so I've declared two variables here, and then I'm printing them. Either I could have said print or I can say select, whatever, right? Now, incremental operators, they have been introduced again from 2008 version. You know them, incremental or decremental operators: plus equal to, minus equal to, multiplication equal to, division equal to, and percentage equal to, that is modulus. So I have declared one variable C here and I have initialized it to value 2, right? Then what we are doing here is I am saying set C equal to multiplication equal to 2 and then we are printing it. Fine. So let us execute this block. What am I executing? I'm executing a batch here. Okay, this entire batch. What is it? It's 2, right? Suppose I initialize to value 3. It will be 6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first print here. So we will see the earlier values and then we will see the changed values. So the earlier value is 3 and the changed value is 6. Getting my point? So if I say plus equal to, it will add those many times, of course, like that. So these are the operators that are used along with it. 2008 version onwards. Plus equal to, minus equal to. Minus equal to will give you what? It will add, subtract from it. Minus equal to. So it performs the operation with the given number. Is it fine? Like in C++, you have plus operators, isn't it?
Yeah.
We say 2 plus something.
Yeah.
It's somewhat similar to that.
Right.
See, basically, SQL Server is the basis C++ only, isn't it? So those concepts are carried forward here also. So, so far we have seen how to declare variables. So what we discussed so far is the topic that we discussed so far is declaration of variables, declaration and initialization of variables, right? That we have seen so far, and executing batch using print statement, okay, and operators. This is what we have seen so far. So declaring variables and storing data temporarily in it is what we have seen. But how to use it with a database, that we have not seen. Our aim is not to print 2 and 4. Our aim is to get the value from the database and store it in a variable. That means I want to get the salary of Smith and store it in a variable X and then multiply it by 12 or do something with it, right? So fetch the values from database and temporarily store them in a variable and use those variables for some purpose. So how to do that? That is our next aim. So what we are now going to talk about is we are going to use data.
Can you hear me?
Values.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me? I just wanted to see. I think I'll have to rejoin again because I have a
What
hearing
happened?
this thing. I'm not listening clearly. Okay.
Hello?
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. So, what we are talking about right now is use database values and store them in variables. Okay, this is what we will be talking about right now. Now, let us try to fetch values from database and store them in a variable. So how do we do that? Is obviously, to get the values from the database, we will have to write queries, isn't it? So to get the values from the database, we are going to write our regular queries. And in addition to writing queries, we are also going to use variables along with it. Fine. So the very first thing is we'll have to declare a variable. And after declaring a variable, we'll have to write a query. In that query, we will be using that variable. Okay. So as you can see here, I have declared a variable of type integer, and then I'm saying select @x. Till now, what we were doing, suppose I have declared a variable. Forget about this thing. We used to declare a variable, and then we used to set value 3 to variable c, isn't it? Now what we are going to do is, this is a hard-coded value 3. Instead of 3, what we are going to do is, we are going to provide sal. Sal is coming from where? Sal is coming from EMP table. Okay. So the value of sal is going to be assigned to C. Is it fine? So what we are going to do is this. I have declared a variable x. It is of type integer. It has to be integer. Why? Because salary is numerical type. Getting my point? So you will have to, remember the data type of the column. So if salary is integer type, the variable should also be of integer type. There has to be a compatibility between two. So I am going to say select sal from EMP. But when I'm saying select sal from EMP, the value of sal needs to be given to variable x. Okay. And whose salary I want? I want salary of Smith. So I'm saying where ename is equal to Smith, and then I'm printing salary of Smith. So what new we have done here is, there the original query we used to write select sal from EMP where ename is equal to Smith, right? So we used to write this much. Now what we are, additional thing that we are doing is, the value of this salary is now assigned to a variable x. This is the only new thing that we have done. So now variable x will be populated with the salary of Smith, right? So for that, first we'll have to declare it and then assign it. So now I am going to use this variable. So what it is printing? It is printing 800. Now this variable is holding a value x and x. Now I can say what I can say is, maybe I'll say @x plus equal to 2. Okay, and then I'm saying print @x. What happened? Maybe I did not select everything. Syntax near line 6. Okay, set. Isn't it? So I stored value in variable x, and then I'm saying get the value 800. So it first printed 800, and then I said at the rate x plus 2 plus equal to 2. So now the value is modified to 208. So now variable x is modified with value 802, isn't it? So like this, we can fetch the values from the database and store them in a variable. Okay. Now, what we have done here, I'm going to write 2 batches here. Sorry. Select @x from, I'm giving salary to @x. But here, what we have done, we have been talking about a specific employee, that is Smith's salary. So it was giving me one value. Now, what if we do not give a where condition? Then what will happen? I'm going to execute this batch. What is this 1300? From where it is coming? Okay, I'm going to take new session here, and I'll say use SQL2, and I'm saying select star from EMP. Okay, our regular employee table. 1300 is coming from where? Can you see this last record? What is this? Salary of Miller is 1300. Can you observe it?
Yes.
Can you see this? So what is the conclusion? That means if I do not give a where condition, see, do you know that there are different types of variables?
Like?
Types of variables in the sense there is something called as scalar variable, or there is something called as composite variable, isn't it? Then global variables. Like this, there are different types of variables. So what do you mean by scalar variable? Scalar means what?
Well, scalar is a physics thing without direction. No, yeah, without direction,
Scalar
only
means
magnitude.
one. Scalar means one value.
Mm-hmm.
Single.
Yeah.
Okay. So the variables that we have been using. What type of variable this is? This is a scalar variable. Means what? Means it can hold only one value at a time. Okay. So at the time, right now in the previous batch, what it was holding? It was holding only Smith's value, and it gave 800. Then I may say where value is king. So now it will give me value of king. So at the time it can hold one value, right? But if you look at this batch, I'm I did not give any where condition, right? So what it is doing, it cannot hold every employee's value. It cannot hold 14 salaries at a time. So what it does, it is scroll through all the records and it gives me the last salary. Getting it? So that is the last salary that it gives me, and that is why it gives me the value of the last record. That is the default behavior of, if you skip the where condition, it will give me the value of the last record. And that is why it is printing 1300, which is the salary of Miller, and Miller is the last record in the table. Okay. Okay. So that was about getting data from the database, storing it in a variable and printing it. That's what we did right now. Now we are going to come across conditional checking. Tell me, Manan, have you used if condition before? Have you written
If
any programs?
yes, basic if else, if
Hmm. Hmm.
if C is equal to this thing,
Hmm.
if C that C plus plus में जो that conditional thing is, if I equal to this thing, I greater than this thing, I plus plus, right? It keeps moving forward, keep checking the
Right.
next value.
Right. So that makes my job very much easier. That means you are aware of the concept of if, right?
Yes, yes.
So the same purpose is see, wherever you get programs, you have to write conditions, and wherever there are conditions, if is going to come. So in any programs module, this is going to be there. SQL Server is also not an exception to it. So here also we can write conditional statements using if. Okay. So how it is done? The syntax for writing if is if, then basically this begin end. You need to write begin end. This is optional. Optional means what? If there is only one statement, you can skip begin and end. But if there are multiple statements, then you will have to write begin and end for every if. Okay. So it is a good programming practice that you write begin and end for it. Okay. So how you will write begin end? If condition begin, and then whatever statements you want to write, those statements, else whatever statements you want to write, those statements. Okay. And if you want to check for multiple begin end, then this is how you should go for it. Then if you want to check multiple condition, there is something called as else if. Do you know that? Else if.
Else if, yeah,
That
yeah,
means,
yeah.
yeah, if a particular condition is not true, then you want to check one more condition. In that case, you should go for else if. Okay. So let us start with a basic example of begin end. Sorry, if. So now what we are going to check is the new topic that we are learning right now is if conditions. Okay. So if else and if else if. That's what we are going to study. So first I have declared a variable x and initialized it to value 56, and I'm checking a condition that if at the rate x is more than 40, then print pass, else print fail. Why I have not written begin end here? There is no begin and end in this if condition, isn't it? So why did not I write it? I told you that you should write it.
Print failed, print passed, if declare. If this, print else. Don't know, can't say.
I told you that if there are multiple lines in if, or if there are multiple lines in S, you will have to write begin end. Right now there is only one line in both the cases, so you can skip begin end. So it is going to print pass right now. Okay, if this value is 12, then what it is going to print? It is going to print fail. Okay, so this is how we write pass or fail, whatever. Now, what if there are multiple values, multiple statements? So we modify the same code like this. Now here we have used concatenation operator. Okay. Now I have declared an integer x which is initialized to 56, and I am checking the condition. What is the condition? The condition is if it is greater than 40, then here as you can see I have multiple statements. There are two statements in the if part and there are two statements in the else part. So this is what I was saying. If you have multiple statements in if or else part, then you will have to write begin end for each of them. Okay, so there are more than one statement, so I'll have to enclose them in begin end. Also, you can see that in the else part, I have multiple statements here. So I have enclosed them in begin end. Fine. So if I execute this part, it is saying past marks are 56. So using concatenation operator here, and it is printing the marks of that person. Okay. Now, how to use else if? If at all a value is not matching, you want to check one more condition. So in if, you should go for else if. If not this, then I need to check one more condition. So you go for else if. It's a very typical example of printing the value, first class, distinction, second class, like that. Okay, so right now I have initialized a variable with a value 41, and what I'm checking, that if it is greater than or equal to 70, print distinction. If it is not 70, then what I'm checking, I'm checking whether it is more than 60. Then you should print first class. What if it is not that also? Then I'm checking one more condition. So I'll keep on checking conditions till it is more than 40. What if none of these are matching? If none of the above conditions are met or matched, then you go to the else part and print failed. Right? So please have a look at the syntax, else space if. That is how you should write it. Okay. So right now it is printing as passed because marks are greater than 14. So it is going to this bracket. Okay. Now let me tell you, if you know it anyway. See, when you are using such conditions in if and else, please make sure that you check condition either in complete ascending order or in complete descending order. Okay. What do I mean by that? Complete ascending or complete descending means what? That means if I'm starting from 70, it should be first 70, 60, 50, 40 and then 30. Or if I'm starting from 40, then it should be 40, 50, 60, 70. Okay, it has to be sequential. Then only you are going to get results. So if you start from first, if you start from 60, then you start from 70, then in between you start with 30, then here you start with 20. This won't work. If it is greater than 60, obviously it is greater than 70. So it will keep on giving you the same results even if it is not correct. So it has to be sequential. Don't check the condition in haphazard manner. That's what I want to tell you. Is it okay? So it has to be either in complete descending sequential or complete ascending sequential. That is one thing that a programmer should always keep in mind. Okay. Now I will not execute this again. We will save time. Nested if. That means within one if you can have one more if condition. For example, here what we are doing is I am saying select @salary. So @s is having a value of salary for Smith. If it is more than 1000, I am checking the job of Smith. If it is manager, then 30% raise, otherwise 20% raise. If none of these conditions are matching, go to the else part and say no raise. Fine. So now, how this entire scenario can be thought of? Can you tell me? What?
If 2.
I'm checking two conditions, isn't it? That means first I'm checking, first of all, this is important, that I'm getting salary of Smith and getting stored it in a variable S, right? Then I'm checking if the value of variable S is more than 1000. If it is, sorry, less than 1000. If it is less than 1000, then only it is going to go inside and check. Okay. If it is less than 1000, then I am populating one more variable called as J and getting the job of Smith. If it is manager, then this, else it is this. Fine. So if the outer if condition is true, then it will come inside the inner if and perform whatever is done here. If the outer if condition is false, then it will not go to the inner if. It will directly print no raise. Is it fine? Okay. Now there is a specific condition related to if for SQL Server, that is for TSQL, and if with exists or not exists. What is this exists or not exists? It is an operator. What does this operator do? It is a Boolean type of operator. Okay, it tells you whether the value is present or not. So it returns true or false. Fine. This is not there in Oracle. This is specific to TSQL. Now, if exists, that means I don't want to store any value for a variable. What I just want to check whether the salary is more than this value or not. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm writing a query here. Select null. I don't want to fetch any columns value. So I'm saying select null. I'm not interested in values. I just want to check whether the value is present or not. Right? So if exists, select null. I have to select something. So I am saying select null. Select null from employee where salary is more than 10,000. If it is more than 10,000, then print A, otherwise print B. So right now, what is happening here is there is no person who is earning more than 10,000 in employee table, right? So the exists, it returns false. Because exist returns false, it goes to the B part and it prints B. Getting my point?
Okay.
Suppose I'm saying, suppose instead of 10,000, if I use 5,000, which is the salary of king, okay, it will go and print A, right? So here exist is going to return true, and that is why it is going to print A. So sometimes if you want to check for a value, whether it is present or not, instead of storing it in a variable, you can directly use this clause called as it if exists. Then you can compare two queries using if. Okay, as you can see here, instead of comparing variables, I am simply comparing the result sets of the queries. Look at this query. This is very interesting. Okay, if something, what I'm doing here is, if one query is checked with another query. Generally what we write, we declare two variables. We say if @x less than @y, isn't it? This is what we write generally. So we compare what value of one variable with another variable. If 3 is equal to 4 or if x is equal to y, then we do something. But here, instead of variables, what we are doing is we are writing or we are comparing two variables. So you can imagine this as let's say x and this as let's say y. So this is a result set. This is like a result set. X is like a result set. So what is that result set? Select Sal from EMP where ename is equal to Smith, and select Sal from EMP where ename is equal to King. So actually what is happening here is, this is returning what value? This is returning value 800, right? That is salary of Smith, and this is returning value which is let's say 5,000, which is salary of King. Getting my point? So in short, what we are comparing, if 800 is less than 5000, print X, otherwise print Y. So in this case, what is returning? It is going to return X. So if condition can also compare two queries. Getting my point? But then there is one thing that you should remember about this entire scenario. And what is it? That the queries that you are comparing, they should give only one record, one value. If it is giving multiple values, then you cannot compare two. Okay? Just a minute. Just a minute. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. So, sorry. So, what I was telling you that when you are comparing one query with another query using if, then make sure that both the queries, they return single value. Then only you can compare them. Okay? Getting it? Operator, between operator, not between operator. Different types of operator we have studied in SQL this when we started studying SQL. So here you can use those. For example, if at the rate X in 345 and Y between 100 and 300, then print P, otherwise print Q. Similarly, you can use is null operator. What does it do, is null operator? It tells you where the value is null or not. I'll show it to you. See, for example, I'm saying select commission from EMP. So what does it do? There are values which are not null values. There are some null values and there are some not null values. So if I want to know which are null values, then I say where commission is space null. So what do I get? These are all the employees who do not get commission, right? That is null. And is not null. Is not null means these are all the employees where commission is not null, right? So is null and is not null, these are the two operators that we get here. So see, I have declared a variable X as integer, and then I say select @X equal to commission from EMP. Fine. If @X is null, then print is null, otherwise print it is not null. Okay. So the last a particular record, maybe we will talk about a record of king, where ename is equal to king. So I want to know whether king is earning commission or he is not earning commission. That's what I want to know. So what we will get, commission of king will be stored in variable X, and that we are comparing. If @X is null, then something. So king is not earning any commission. That means the value of commission is null in front of the record king. Is that fine?
Yes.
Now, do you want to take a break?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so it's almost 7:40 here. So we'll be back by after 15 minutes.
Yes, 15 minutes. That's on.
Okay. Okay. And I'll keep like yesterday. I'll mute and I'll pause the recording.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So I have declared two variables here, that is x and y. Have I initialized these variables?
No.
No. So what is the current value of these variables? If I say print at the rate x and then I'm saying print at the rate y, what will happen if I print the values of x and y right now?
Can't say.
Will it display 0? Because I have not initialized them.
No. There should be some default.
By default, the variables, if they are not initialized, they hold null value. Okay, so when I'm executing this, it will not print anything because x and y right now are holding what value? They are holding null values, right? So this was to tell you that uninitialized variables, they hold null value. Now, based on this conclusion, I'm going to write a code. And the code is, I have declared a variable x and y. I have not initialized them. Okay. And then I'm checking if x equal to y, print equal, otherwise print unknown. So what do you think? If I execute this batch, what will be the output of this batch?
Can't say.
What will this condition do?
If x equal to y. Only it's equating, right?
Yes.
Print
So
equal if
what?
they equal.
Hmm. X and y, both of them are holding null values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it should print equal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Unknown. So it is not going to the true part, it is going to the false part.
Mm-hmm.
See, by default, null is unknown value. So how can I compare unknown value with unknown value? I cannot equate it.
Mm-hmm.
है ना? So by default, there is a setting, and the setting is ANSI nulls. Okay, it's a session specific. You know now what is session specific, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So session specific means only for that session. So the thing that you should remember is the command that is set. The property name is ANSI null, ANSI underscore null. The default behavior is on. Okay, this is the default behavior. This is for that session. If you set it to off, execute. It's the syntax. Nulls. It's plural. Nulls. Okay. Okay. Now the result will be different. It identifies two null values, and now it is printing equal. Okay, and if the default, if I say on, and now if I execute this batch, then it will print unknown, that is the else part. Understood? So this is a session specific command wherein you can set it to on or off, ANSI underscore nulls. Okay, the default is on. And you know, like operator, it is used for pattern matching, if you remember. Underscore and percentage, these are the two patterns that you can match. Okay, so here I can say variable is initialized to ABCD. I'm saying if at the rate like is the operator that I'm using, a percentage, that means anything that is starting with a. If it is true, then print starts with a, otherwise print does not start with a. So if I execute this batch, it is going to print starts with a. Okay, because a percentage is matching, like matching, because at the rate x is holding ABCD starting with a. Now, how to use case function. The case, see, whatever we have studied in SQL, we cannot forget now. The same thing is going to be carried forward here, plus additionally programming techniques are going to be there. So how to incorporate those SQL techniques in programming, that we have to understand, right? So how to use this case. I have declared one variable called a string, which is varchar type. Okay, and to this we are assigning a value which is coming through case. Okay, so what we are doing in basically is we are initializing the value of str. And how we are getting the value of str? With the help of case. And how do we write case? When then something, isn't it? So from where I am getting this, when exists, you know now what is when exists. Exist is going to check for the availability of the value, true or false. Select null from EMP where salary is more than 10,000. If at all salary is more than 1,000, if it is so, then India, otherwise USA, right? So what it is doing is, if at all salary is 1,000, then India will be set to string str, otherwise USA will be set to string str, and then I'm printing str. Okay, this end is of what? Can you tell me?
Begin and declare, begin and set case when. This ends.
And this end is of what? There are two end. There is one end here and one end here.
Can't say.
This block, begin end block, is of this, and every case ends with end. So
Okay.
this end is of case. So please
Okay,
remember,
got it.
that's what I'm saying. We cannot forget what we have studied in SQL. So that syntax is anyway going to be same. That is not going to change. Okay. So when exists of this, so this is going to return true. And if when this, then India, otherwise USA. If I execute this batch, so it is printing India. Why? Because there are employees earning more than 1,000 rupees, right? I could have written multiple when statements here, just like any other case. Okay. So now str is storing value India. Okay, now we are going to go forward and study something called as looping techniques. So like I told you, there is only one loop available in TSQL, that is called as while loop. So we are now going to go forward and study while loop. Now how does this loop execute? The loop will keep on executing a set of statements till the condition is true, right? As you can see, I have initialized a variable, it's a counter variable, which is W, which is initialized to value 1. Now, this will enter the loop if the condition is correct. Okay, so 1 is always less than 10, so it will go inside the loop. Why I have used begin end? Because there are multiple statements, isn't it? There is more than one statement here. That is why I have used begin end block. Okay, so I am printing the value of W, and then I am saying set W is equal to W plus 1. So this is doing what? This is incrementing the value. Okay, so I'm going to execute this batch, and what I'm getting here is iterations. Okay, so it is printing from 1 to 10. Any doubt?
No.
Great. So what will I do to print it from 10 to 1?
Can't say.
How will I print it from 10 to 1? So first value, I have to initialize it to what? What will be my condition? I'll initialize it to 10. My condition will be what? Now I will not check less than equal to. I'll check greater than equal to 1, isn't it? So I need to decrement now. So I have initialized it to 10, and I'm going to keep on decrementing till it becomes 1, right? So instead of adding, I should subtract from the value, right? So now it is going to print from 10 to 1, isn't it? So what will happen if right now this is 0? If I bring it to 0, then what will happen? If I execute this code now, it will not go inside the loop itself. Getting it? Because the condition 0 is never greater than or equal to 1. So this condition is not true. As this condition is not true, this will not go inside the loop and execute these things. It will only enter the loop if the condition is true and execute. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this way you can manually increment or decrement the counter variable, that is W. W is the counter variable in our case. Fine. Now, Manan, please be careful about one thing. If at all, when you are using loops, there is a risk of, going into endless loop.
Mm-hmm.
So in case you go into endless loop, then your session will keep on, looping. So you'll have to
Uh-huh.
manually stop it by, executing break.
Mm-hmm.
And so that care you'll have to take. So you'll have to manually come out of that session, and then you'll have to make changes to the code again.
Mm-hmm.
So break statement is used to terminate the loop. Right? For example, if I want to exit in between the value, then I use a statement which is called as break. Okay, so what will be the output of this entire block? See, it is supposed to print 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, what is my condition? My condition is it is 1 and it should print from 1 to 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the condition is true, 1 is less than 10. So it entered inside the loop and it kept on printing. But then every time it is checking this condition. The moment W becomes 5, I am supposed to quit. So I am using this break statement. Now imagine I if I do not use this if else if. I'll comment break and I will only print W. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now what it is doing? It is printing from 1 to 10, right? But if at all I am checking a condition at 5 and I'm saying break, then it terminates the loop. Getting now how to use break. That means if you want to conditionally come out of the loop, then and do not want to iterate through the entire loop, then you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting my point? Okay. So that is break. Like break, there is something called as continue. So what is the purpose of this continue? Continue is a keyword. See, first let us have a look at the end effect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 5, we directly have 7. And then we go till 10. Means what is it? It is printing from 1 to 10, but it is keeping 6. Right? So what we are doing here is we are saying while x is less than 10, so 0 is obviously less than 10. I am printing the value, I am incrementing and printing, but every time I iterate, I check if x is equal to 6. If x is equal to 6, then I am saying continue. That means when it comes to 6, it skips that value and it continues. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't break the loop, but it skips that value and then it continues from the next value onwards. That is the difference between break and continue.
Mm-hmm.
There is a nested loop example. I will not take it right now. It will be complicated example. It's just a logic building type. So once you know one loop, you can write. So that was about the basic concepts of programming. I suppose you have understood this. Okay.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is you go through this recorded session one more time, starting from end, start to end, both the sessions. Okay, so that all the programming concepts will be revised. So you see, basically, it is easy to understand, but the more you practice, the practice is the only solution. So, like I have told you how a while loop works, but then you will have to make it work with different examples. Then and only then you will be able to understand. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
Now,
So just
uh,
related question. So this database programming
mhm.
is, I mean, how is it different from querying? Like we learned querying. You are
See,
declaring, you're initializing, that's fine.
yes.
You're, in fact, there's some sort of use of some looping and conditional statements.
Hmm.
And but in a way we are writing, we are using the same what we say instance, this the same session, like the way we used to use sessions for writing simple queries or even complex queries. And
Hmm.
so this for DBs, it's also a query. For the DB, it's a query.
It's a batch.
It's a batch.
Batch.
Okay. So what's the difference between a query and a batch?
See, basically, this is my query. I'm writing select star from EMP, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing is I'm interacting with this table, EMP
Mm-hmm.
table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm getting records from here. This is a simple query that I write.
Mm-hmm.
But here, this set of statements, if I can, this one statement becomes one batch. This one statement becomes one batch, right? So this entire thing, whatever I'm selecting and execute, this becomes one batch. So I cannot individually execute statements. Right now, if I execute set x as 0, this is not going to work because it does not know what is x. But if I execute both of them together, then it will come to know what it is all about. Are you getting my point?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one block that I am executing. In SQL Server, it is called as a batch. So
Mm-hmm.
this entire batch is one statement,
Mm-hmm.
and this batch will interact with the database in the table.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like for example, I'm saying that, so here I'm saying select at the rate x. See, it tells you that it is a variable. It's a
Mm-hmm.
local variable, isn't it? It tells you
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
is equal to salary from employee, where ename is equal to Jones. And then I am printing. Every time I do not have to print, but for my reference, I'm printing it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting 2975 is the salary of Jones. Once I get this salary, then I am writing a very complex logic on this salary X. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say I'm saying if where's that? If at the rate X is greater than 3000, then what I'm doing is I'm printing at the rate X multiply equal to 3. Else set at the rate x multiply equal to 2. Okay, and then I am saying print at the rate x. And then I execute this entire batch. So it is printing by getting it. So what we did is not only we wrote queries, but the results of those queries we stored in a variable, and then we use those variables to write some programs from it. Isn't it? So the queries are incorporated in my batch or in my program, and taking the help of the queries, I am developing some logic. So programming along with queries, SQL. So I can write, I can use built-in functions. So whatever I can use subqueries, set operators, whatever I want, I can use it here, no issues. But along with that, I want some functionality. So for that, I am using programs, programming techniques, I mean to say. Do you remember that we have studied different types of variables? That is local variables and global variables, right? I've told you that local variables are used with single at the rate, and global variables are used with double at the rate, right? Those variables, whatever variables we have seen so far, they are what? They are scalar type of variables. Means at a time they can hold one value, isn't it? Either it can hold multiplied by 3 or it can hold multiplied by 2, but one value at a time, isn't it? Internally, it does not have multiple values. So one variable, one value. That's what the proportion we have seen. And those are called as scalar variables. Now we are going to study something called as stable variables. Okay. Now what are these stable variables? It is a data type that can be used to store a result set for processing at a later time. Means what? Table is primarily used for temporary storage of set of rows returned as a result set. That means if at all I want to store records, multiple records in one variable, I go for table variable types. Fine. A variable, it behaves like a local variable and it has a scope. This is the function, stored procedure, or batch that is declared in it. So what is the scope of this variable? The scope of the variables where it is declared. That means it may be declared within a function, or it may be declared within a procedure, or batch. Batch means like this. This is just written and executed like a query. This is batch scope. Okay. This is called as a batch scope. So I may have declared a table variable for this batch. So the scope of that table variable is this batch. Okay. If I have written it in a procedure, the scope of that table variable is only that much procedure. Right. So this is basically a very useful from programming perspective. Now, this variable is used like a table, but it is not a table. Okay. It can be used in select, insert, update, or delete statements. So the variables, this table variable can be used in either DMS or in select statement. So where I can apply it, it can be declared to be of type table. Like we declare @x, we have to declare it as type table. So its type is table. And where are they used? They are used in functions, procedures, and batches. Okay. So how we can use these table variables? For example, using it in a normal insert statement. That is our first example. Okay. So we have to declare it using declare. The name of the variable is @t. So far nothing new in this highlighted point. Okay. But what you have seen here is you have to specify table. See, earlier what we used to do, we used to say declare @x as let's say what int, like that, isn't it? And then we used to assign value 5 to it, and then we used to say print @x, right? This is a batch scope. This is one batch that I'm executing, and it is printing 5. Do you agree with me?
Mm-hmm.
What type of variable I have declared here? This is a scalar variable. Okay, that means it is holding a single value for the time being. But now, instead of scalar variable, I am going to say this as type table. Okay, so how I am going to declare it? Instead of one variable, I am going to declare it as a type table. So what it is going to hold? It is going to now hold multiple values. Okay, what multiple values it is going to hold? It is going to hold values for one name and the other one for salary. Okay, are you getting it?
Yes.
Now for inserting, I'm going to insert into variable t values a and something, and insert into variable t values b and something. Okay, and then I'm going to say select star from variable name. I'm not going to say select star from table name. Okay, so what it is printing? It is printing a 7 something and b 9999. So this variable is holding at what it is holding. Basically, it is holding two records right now. Are you understanding this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of the concept of array?
Array. Yeah, I mean it's a memory allocated space.
See, till now what we were doing, we were saying x equal to 3. Okay, a equal to 3, or q equal to, q equal to 2, like that. So till now, this is what we were talking about, scalar variables. Okay, so the problem was right now what was, for one variable, we had one value. So if we had 10 variables, do you imagine? For example, this one is for EMPNO. This one is for SAL. Then for job, I had to have one more variable J, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like then there will be clerk for it, like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if there were multiple columns, I have to have those many scalar variables and those many values,
Mm-hmm.
right? As against to this, I can have something called as composite type, composite variable. So that will be what? That will be called as stable variable. So how many variables I will have now? I will have only one variable, x. This variable x will have the data of e-name as well as salary. Getting my point? And this data now holds multiple values. That is, the same variable x is holding value multiple records. So these two records are stored against one variable x. Are you getting my point now? So I am making my code more compact, and this variable is referring to multiple records. So it may happen that my query is saying, suppose these two people, they are clerks. Okay, and my query is, I'm saying select what ename comma sal from EMP where job equal to what clerk, whatever. Fine. So this is my query. Now this particular query is extracting these two records, which I can store in this particular variable x. So I do not have to create those many records, those many variables, those many values. So it's like an array. Against one variable, you have composite values. Understood? I get these records from the table is like this. I have declared @t. There is a variable t which is of table type. Okay. And what are the components of this table? That is ename and asal. So it is holding name and salary. And I'm saying insert into t. What are the values? The variable t is getting populated with ename and salary for department 20. So here we are, earlier example was using insert with table. Now this example is using select with table variable. Let us see the end effect first. What are we having here? These are all, it is giving me 5 records. All these 5 records of department 20. Okay. Now how we have used it? What are the components of table at variable t? Name and salary, right? Now I'm saying insert into @t. That means I am providing values to variable t. But what all values I am providing? They are coming from a query. So what is the syntax? Insert into variable name, and then this query can be anything. Whatever are the results of this query will be assigned to variable t. So now variable t, if I say select star from variable t, it is now having this record set. See the advantage. Otherwise, I would have created those many scalar variables for each value. But now I don't have to do that. Against one variable, I am getting all these records. Isn't it? So there is one thing that you should remember. These column names and these, they may be same. They has to be same. Because ultimately, ename value, ename's data is going to this value, and salary's data is going to go to asal. Right? So this is a composite type of variable which can hold multiple records at a time. Now tell me one thing, is this my table? Is this a proper this @t? Is it a table?
No.
It is not a table. That means if you go to TSQL2, if you go to tables, you will never see @T here, because it is not a physical, it does not have physical existence. It's a variable. There is a big difference between a variable and a table. Okay. So this is not a physical table. So I cannot create indexes, etc. on it. It's a variable. And that is what it says that, sorry. Indexes cannot be created, foreign key constraints cannot be put on it, okay? But you can perform joins, other constraints such as primary key, unique key, not null, check, that can be created and applied on table variables, right? So for these table variables, when I create it, I can use primary key, not null, unique, etc. But I cannot use foreign key on it. Also, I cannot use indexes on it because it's not a relational table. So I cannot use references on it. Okay. So that is what the information is telling you all about. But I can join one table variable with another table variable to get a common effect. Okay. It can perform a join of records, okay, but an alias to the table variables is mandatory. So I'll not do it practically, just I'll tell you that there are two table variables. One is T1 and the other one is T2. Okay, table variable T1 is getting data from department table, and table variable T2 is getting a data from employee table. Okay, and we are creating a join on @T1 with @T2.
Now, the department name and department and employee table are not uh, specifically mentioned in the query.
No, we are not getting data from anywhere. I am explicitly writing it here. Okay, so there is no select statement. This could have been anything. This could have been X and Y. Okay, this is just any name that I have chosen. I'm not getting data from EMP or DEPT table. I'm right now using hard-coded values like 10A, 20B, like that. Just to tell that the data can be taken from two table variables. I can create an example wherein getting data from multiple tables as well. Okay, so what it is showing you is 10 and 20 are common to both the table variables. So it is joining X with A, Y with B. So X with A, and then it is joining Y with B, like that. So there is a select statement, and the table variables are joined from T1 @T1 @T2. But then there is one important thing in this case. If you are performing a join on table variables, you have to give this. What are this? Aliases. Aliases T1, T2. These are the aliases, and the joining condition uses those aliases. That is mandatory. Okay, so that is what it says, that you can perform join on it, but aliases are mandatory. So you see that just highlighted T1, T2. The aliases are used. I can write queries on it. I can also write subqueries on it. Is it fine?
Yeah.
So that was about composite variable. This is very useful in coding actually, wherein if I have to fetch multiple records and store it in one variable, then I go for table variables. So I thought this you should know this. Okay. So what we discussed right now is table variable. Okay. So what do you think? Should we go ahead or you want to stop for the day?
Mm,
Because then now
depends on you.
I'll have to start with, yeah, I don't mind, but then it'll be a altogether new topic because
Mm-hmm.
now we have covered programming basics.
Mm-hmm. And what all is left now?
There are many things actually. Hmm. We have covered all this so far.
Mm-hmm.
We have covered common table expressions. Yes, we have covered common table expressions. Constraints, DMLs. Yes, we are yet to. I have highlighted what to cover. We are done with views. We are yet to cover windowing functions. Then we are to cover transactions. At that time, all these things will be covered.
Mm-hmm. Can you
Temporary.
I mean, I know you must have sent this to me, but this highlighted thing, whichever you is selecting as of now, pending today, uh, as of today, please can you email this to? Yeah, I mean, and I'll ask anyone uh, from Analyst era to quickly email me right now. I want to have a print of this now, and I want to align myself to this one, current status as of today.
Okay. So let me have a look at it. This is, I'm not going to do this practically, but I'm going to tell this to you conceptually. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this won't take much time actually. That should be, so one, two, 5 topics are remaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so probably two weekends definitely.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay,
So, hmm.
two not two
So
2 weeks actually, 2 weeks, and in a way,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
4 sessions probably, more 4 sessions.
okay, that works. So please send this to quickly email this to Analyst era
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
and they should email me right now.